got all the information we need about our favorite mode, Dynasty. If you live under a rock or just simply haven't grown any pubic hair and never got to play NCAA football in the past, Dynasty Mode is where you take a coach and you rebuild a program to national contention while jumping up the coaching ranks. In today's video, guys, we're breaking down everything you need to know about Dynasty Mode, and we've narrowed it down to the 15 most important details so you don't have to sit there and watch a 30 to an hour long video or read 85 pages in the community post by EA College Football. And boys, I would stick around to the final point because it's probably my favorite one. Before we jump in, fellas, we gotta understand how they built this Dynasty Mode, and it was based on 3 pillars and 1 core motto. Those 3 pillars being build your coach, build your program, and deliver on the world of college football. The motto the team used was satisfy the community because it's their game. Basically, what that means is the EA development team made sure that this game delivered on the core mode they cared about, Dynasty Mode. First thing you gotta know, guys, it's the coach archetypes. So when you build your coach, he's gonna be one of 3 archetypes, and that's gonna fall under 3 main pillars. That's gonna be either motivator, a recruiter, or a tactician. Basically, are you gonna be a strategist about the game of football? Are you gonna out-scheme your opponents? Are you gonna be a really good recruiter and just recruit some of the best players in the land? Be able to reach your players even if you're on a smaller program, be able to recruit higher talented players? Or are you just gonna be a motivator and you're gonna be really good at developing players once they're in your program? Basically, from those, you're gonna be able to build one of 11 archetypes for your specific coach. Whether that's an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, or even a head coach. Basically, the goal is to unlock XP, which we're gonna explain in a little bit, to eventually get coaching points, and then put those back into the archetypes and increase abilities for each specific coach. Next, guys, builds off the last thing we just explained about the coach archetypes. It is setting your own coaching identity. I love that we're gonna be able to set our own coaching identity in our own programs. Basically, the 134 ways to play is not only gonna affect head-to-head seasons and playbooks in the head-to-head or on the road to the college football playoff, but it's going to affect exactly how our coaches coach as well. There's not gonna be one way to be a head coach. Not every head coach is perfect in every aspect of football. Basically, the team at EA said that this was the one thing they want to implement as well. You're gonna have a team around you, the right coordinators, and have players that fit your schemes to make sure you're successful in this game. This game is going to have 50 abilities that you can implement into your coaches, and coaches also will be specific to players. They'll have specific things they're really good at coaching, to specific positions they can really coach. For example, explain the EA College Football website, maybe you're just a really good quarterback whisperer, and you can coach your quarterback to be very good under pressure and have what you call the icy vein straight. As you specifically go down a narrow path and coach a specific position, you're gonna be very good at coaching certain aspects of the game of football. You're gonna have to hire coaches that are very good at other areas or be part of programs that can be successful in other areas where you're not very strong at. Each ability is going to be having one of 4 tiers that you can upgrade throughout your season or throughout your coach's career. They give an example of a Chip Kelly type of coach. He's really good with fast up-tempo offenses, and that's an ability that he develops as a coach, and as you upgrade the trait, the more beneficial it is for your coach to be successful. One thing I didn't feel like they explained clearly before, though, was that even though your coach can have these really good abilities on offense, there's going to be a counter to that on the defensive side. So even because you have a tier 4 type of ability, it doesn't mean it's going to work every single time. Defense coordinators are going to be able to offset that with their schematics, and I think this is where the chess match is going to come into play, which has got me super excited about this game and diving into Dynasty a little bit further. So how are you gonna be able to earn XP, right? That brings me to the next point, guys. Coaches will be able to earn XP through one of 4 ways. That could be the actual gameplay when you're in the game. That could be weekly strategies that you've developed throughout the week. That could be seasonal goals or even career achievements that you set with your coach. As you can see, guys, coaching progression is gonna come down to one of 4 different ways you can earn it. For example, the draft. If you get a lot of guys drafted, that's obviously gonna affect your XP for career mode. A game, obviously, if you coach very well in a game, you beat a rival, you end up as a top 25 team, you beat a top 25 team, you get an upset. Things like that are all going to be game type things that are going to boost your XP. You go over 100 yards rushing, you get 2 turnovers, etc. Things like that. Recruiting, you win a recruit over this. You sign a 5-star prospect, you sign a top 25 recruiting class, things like that. Stats, obviously career stats, all kinds of seasonal stats and weekly stats are going to be things that you're going to get considered for as well to earn XP. As you can see in this picture, guys, when the Kentucky Wildcats score a touchdown, it looks like you got points for just getting a first down or even completing a touchdown pass. Obviously, all those points are going going to be going into your XP, which then are going to turn into coaching points. And those coaching points is what you're going to be able to use for creating abilities and archetypes for your coach. Also, I just want to mention, did you see, guys, this coach that they put in there, Joel Burndown? He is a scary looking motherfucker. I would not want to mess with this coach. This dude's going to have you doing bear crawls all freaking day if you even talk back to him. But on a serious note, guys, this guy's look really cool. I just love the customization that you can do with the beard, for example. And it looks like they're just going to go a little bit more in depth than having those generic coaches that we had in NCAA 14. And I'm super excited about that. That's more of an aesthetic pleaser for me, though. And if you're enjoying the content, guys, and you're looking forward to more Dynasty tips and tricks videos, as we get the game, we're going to be showcasing a lot of different things that you can do within Dynasty to make sure you're successful with your programs. Also, if you're trying to look at more rebuild type of content, as there's 134 schools, you might not get to all of them. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, because we're going to be doing all kinds of different types of rebuilds to hopefully that you can enjoy if you're not going to get to those teams. And we're also doing a giveaway for a copy of EA College Football 25 once we reach 5,000 subs. So that's only more of a reason to make sure you subscribe to the channel. And at the end of this video, we're going to detail more about how you can win a copy of EA College Football 25. Enjoy the rest of the video. Next, fellas, let's talk about the coordinators a little bit. Obviously, as a really good coach, you're going to be very good at a specific position like we described earlier, but these coordinators are going to have to feed off of what you're not good at. If you want an overall good program, you're going to have coordinators that, let's say, if you're really good at passing and coaching a quarterback, like I said earlier, you're going to need a guy that knows how to run the ball and can coach the offensive line to do run blocking versus just pass blocking. A coach that can coach a running back, press the gap and then make a cut. Receivers that can block down the field, things like that. You need guys that can counteract that stuff. If you're very good at coaching pass scally and you got really good corners and you got safeties and receivers that are good, you need a coach that can come in and coach the linebackers on the defensive line on run stop. As I said earlier, no one coach archetype is going to be able to do it all. So in order to have success early, you need to have guys that know how to counteract that, things you got to think about, what fits your scheme well, and how you're going to be able to build off of that down the road. There's going to be over 50 abilities in the game that you're going to be able to use for these coaches, coordinators, and it's all going to be specific to some type of archetypes. They were mentioning earlier that the CEO type is not going to be able to have every single kind of archetype, as well as the scheming guru, things like that. So next is climbing that coaching ladder, right? So let's talk about the way the contracts are made up. This is very similar to how it was in the past. Expectations are going to be based off how many games you win. What are expectations for the conference championships? Do you think you're gonna make the college football playoff, or are you gonna go to the national championship? I think this is very similar to Madden, how you before you start your franchise, you can set what your goals are for the season. It's gonna be very similar to this. You're gonna have an expectation bar and you're gonna be held to that standard once you sign. I think it's really cool that they have a structure to the way the contracts are structured now. And the really cool thing is that right before you sign with a program, you can look back on a 20-year history of how that program's doing, see their trajectory as you build and take that job. Another fan favorite that's finally back and confirmed, guys, is that coaching carousel. For some reason, people thought that might not have been in the game. Obviously, it's going to be in the game. Coaching carousel is when at the end of the season, there's a lot of different things that go on. Offensive coordinators get head coaching jobs. Defensive coordinators get head coaching jobs. Some coordinators get fired, go to a smaller school kind of job. Head coaches get fired to go back to a coordinator job. Obviously, all that's going to be in the game. What I like is that there's not going to be some more formality into how athletic directors and schools hire coaches for their programs. They're going to look at what level you are. Does the scheme fit? If you're a coordinator, does the scheme fit with what the head coach's thoughts are on the offense? I know for a while here in Wisconsin, Barry Alvarez was literally only hiring guys that would ground and pound the football and rarely throw the ball. Archetypes. Are you the type of hire that the coach needs? So if there's a CEO type that's really good at defense, are you the passing guy that can add a completeness to his program? Pipeline. Where are you best at recruiting? Where are you going to get these recruits from? If a guy's got the Northeast covered, we need a guy that has a pipeline and connections to the South. Is that going to be you? And then a coaching prestige, right? So as you level up, what's your prestige like? What's your track record like? What does that look like? It's going to take into account all these 5 things that I feel like it might have been done in the past, but now there's more formality to it, which I just like. And another thing, guys, is that this coaching carousel is going to start similar to how it is in real life. In real life, as soon as we're on the conference championship week and the season's wrapped up, coaches start getting reached out to go interview, and that usually goes for about 5 to 6 weeks heading up to the national championship. As the national championship wraps up, usually teams have made up who they're going to hire. In the very rare instances, it usually goes beyond that. I like that the game is kind of keeping it similar to how it is in real life. So as soon as that conference championship week hits, you're going to start seeing notifications pop up in your inbox and start learning about opportunities moving forward. Especially if you're a head coach and a coordinator wants to move on or you fire a guy, you can only send out 1 offer per week. So that's something you got to keep in mind if you're a coach trying to look for a new coordinator to fill an empty spot. Next, fellas, it's recruiting. And when I saw recruiting, guys, I immediately thought about my job. It's literally a sales process. The way they talked about it is discovery, pitch, and close. That's literally sales. And if you guys want to help me just become a full-time YouTuber, I'd really appreciate it. Just hit subscribe. That'd be amazing. But basically, there is a lot to cover with recruiting, and we're just going to start from the beginning. Recruiting is going to be staged recruiting. So like I said earlier, it's going to be the discovery process, the pitch process, and the closing process. Basically, discovery is the initial stage when you try to start identifying recruits, what they look like, and you kind of just heard about them and kind of just their general interest in schools. The pitch process is once you start narrowing towards the top 5. You're trying to pitch to them to make sure you're in their top 5, and it's someone that you're going to have a chance to close once it starts getting real. And closing is when you officially bring them on a visit and you try to align with everything that you've discovered. You try to make sure that everything that you care about, they care about, and you're saying the right things to these recruits so they commit to your school. Recruiting to start is going to be largely based off of hours that you put in recruits. That's going to be very similar in time allocation like we've done in the past. Basically, what we've got is that you can be as little as 350 hours if you're at a 1-star school, and as high as 1,000 hours, and I'm sure it might be a little bit higher if you have some certain abilities for a 5-star recruiter. So let's start with the discovery phase. As mentioned earlier, the discovery phase is we're simply identifying what players are, what they like, and what of the 14 categories are important to them. To then, when you start pitching them, you know what exactly to pitch to them, so make sure you're not selling just random BS that they don't really care about. As this entire process happens, you're basically building out your scouting type of board. There's 4 states of scouting. There's players that are unscouted, there's partially scouted players, mostly scouted players, and fully scouted players. The more scouted a player is, the more accurate your thoughts are on him going to be. So the more you scout him, the more you'll know what his overall rating and expectations will be once he signs for your team. If someone interests you right from the start, you can start scouting them to make sure that they're not going to be a bust for your program. So then there's basically going to be a way into the discovery process while you're scouting them to find exactly what they like. And that's going to be done through one of 5 actions: offering a scholarship, searching on social media, DMing a player, contacting friends and family, and sending to the house, which means you're just all hands on deck for that one player, and all of your coaches are working to recruit that one player. All of these help you identify exactly what this player likes, what they're about, and it'll help you make sure that you're sending the right message when you're ready for stage 2. In this process, it's also very important to understand what a player's deal breakers are. Deal breakers will be very important when it comes to them wanting to leave the program. In stage 2, guys, you're finally going to pitch them what your thoughts are on why they should sign to your program. And this can be done in one of 2 ways, either a soft sell or a hard sell. Soft sell is a moderate amount of pressure that's going to be applied to a recruit when you're trying to pitch them your program. And if you're off by a couple things, so you didn't fully scout them, that's okay, because they're not going to be as upset because you went about it a nicer way. But if you hard sell them and you miss, it might really tick them off. On the counter to that, if you hard sell and you're hitting exactly on all the points that he cares about, that got my sign right then and there. He might give you that verbal commit, and you might have him locked in all the way through signing day. It's just going to be very dependent on how you pitch this guy and the way that you go about that process to make sure you're ready for the close. And all the close is going to be is scheduling an activity when he gets on campus. So making sure that you schedule that official visit for a team that's going to be important to him. So if he really cares about the atmosphere, making sure that it's one of the big, like a homecoming game or a rivalry game, so you can see that full atmosphere. That's really what's important to him. Another thing, guys, is while they're on that visit, you're gonna have to make sure that you get the right activities for that player. That's gonna go back to the 14 categories that's important to them that you're gonna be able to figure out in the discovery phase. If you get a guy to visit you and you don't really know what he likes, those activities might be for naught because they're not gonna, which leads me to the next part, which is the transfer portal. What I like about the transfer portal is that guys are gonna be very intelligent, and 5-star recruits are gonna go straight into 5-star programs. They're not gonna be in the portal too long. Portal players don't like to, go through that whole process all over again, so they're very quick to make decisions. If one of the deal breakers is not completely broken, you can try to persuade them to stay unless that deal breaker was absolutely torn and he's out. So making sure that you know exactly what that player likes, even after he's trying to leave, is still very important. And the final thing, guys, with recruiting is that positional changes are done right after the signing period. So this is especially important for athletes. Obviously, we knew that we got to put them in a position of need. But however, you can do this with a lot of different players, regardless of position, according to the game. A wide receiver maybe can play corner if you're in lack of corners. So this is very exciting to see what they do. We didn't get a lot of information on 2-way players, but I'm excited to learn more about that, because I think that's a question that everyone's currently having about this game. So next, guys, we told you what we were going to cover in terms of the 14 categories, and those are as follows. As you can see on the screen, guys, it's going to be playing time, playing style, championship contender, program tradition, campus lifestyle, stadium atmosphere, pro potential, brand exposure, which I think that's a NIL, academic prestige, conference prestige, coach prestige, coaching stability, athletic facilities, and proximity to home. All these things are going to be very important to players, and we're not going to waste too much time diving into each one of those means. Very self-explanatory. If you want to pause the video and read exactly what those are about, go ahead. Very similar to how it was in the past. I think there's a few things that have been tweaked, but very similar to just identify what's important to the player and making sure that you know these to make sure that you know how to align the right activities, the right pitches. Obviously, this is something that might become very repetitive, and we're going to try to figure out exactly what's the best way to pitch a guy that's his campus lifestyle is important and academic prestige as well. How do you pitch that versus a guy that cares about the stadium atmosphere and the pro potential? Reading up on this blog, knowing what each thing means and what each thing does is something that you can maybe do to hit the ground running as soon as the game drops. And another thing we know, guys, is that there's going to be 3,500 new recruits done every offseason for this game. That is a lot of players. And another thing to keep in mind is that how we mentioned earlier, there's going to be certain pipelines that are going to be important for coaches when you're recruiting. Speaking of areas, guys, there's going to be specific hubs like there are in real life to go get certain talent. Obviously, the South is going to be loaded with athletes and big defensive linemen, but maybe California is going to have a ton of quarterbacks. Not every class is going to be the same. Some classes are going to be loaded with a certain position, and some classes are going to be very dry at certain positions. You got to be very strategic about what you're going in for and how you're going to handle each offseason with 3,500 generically made players every offseason. Next thing, guys, is development traits. This is very similar to Madden, guys. Players are going to come in and they're going to have one of 4 development type of traits. They're either going to be normal players, impact players, star players, or elite players. This is basically kind of showing as you uncover what kind of player they're going to be and how they're going to develop. This will show you kind of what potential is going to be to make sure that you have the right players coming to your program. I'm sure you're going to be able to, get some hidden gems in there, coming to like a 3-star school and setting all kinds of records. It's going to be very important in part of your scouting and, discovery process in EA College Football 25. I know they showed that picture, guys, with like multiple impact players. There's certainly no limit to how many you can have. As you can see in this picture, you have 3 offensive linemen. You got 2 wings right there, and the running back and quarterback for Georgia. All impact players, which just shows that you got a team full of dogs. I'm excited to see how that's going to affect it. Obviously, I'm sure that's going to go with abilities as well, but I'm excited to see how impact players and dev traits are going to be involved in EA College Football, specific to Dynasty Mode. Next, fellas, is delivering on the world of college football. That was a core pillar for them. So the first thing that they're doing is they're replicating the college football playoff before we even have it. I like the model that EA College Football is going with, that they're going to do the 5-7 model for the college football playoff. What that means is the top 5 ranked conference champions will be automatic bids for the college football playoff. And then the next top 7 overall ranked teams will be the rest of the college football playoff field. That brings it to the total of 12 teams. So there's a theoretic possibility that if you scratch in that second spot in the conference championship, win the conference championship, the Sun Belt or the MAC, and not get into the college football playoff, because you're not going to be in the top 12 ranked teams. Another thing I felt like I should have mentioned is that there's going to be 34 bowl games. Next thing, guys, I wanted to mention is the custom schedules and conference realignment. Custom schedules are going to be very similar. You're going to be able to, mix up certain schedules, players you play, but there's going to be certain locks on conference matchups. So you're going to be able to like tailor your non-conference schedule a little bit from week to week. When you do conference realignment, guys, you can have as little as 4 teams in your conference, or they can be as high as 20, which is super intriguing because if you made like a conference between the best teams in the Big Ten and the SEC, I think it would be very cool to see how they, hash out how that would play out. Maybe have them all play conference games and just see who's going to be the best of the best at the end of the college football playoff. Considering they're all going to have a few losses, I'm assuming, I'm sure it's going to be very hard to go unscathed in a super conference like that, playing all conference matchups, but I just think that it could be very interesting to see, just to see how they play out in the game. Next thing I want to talk about, guys, is red shirts. They're really going deep into like details with the red shirting stuff, that if you have a red shirt freshman, guys, you can play him up to 4 games, but as soon as that 5th game hits, his red shirt's torn off, which I love. It's very realistic, so you can be very strategic at how you're going to use certain guys, wear and tear system. I love that they're doing that in this game, and that's one thing I felt like I really wanted to mention in this college football deep dive. Next, guys, is the Heisman. There's going to be awards at the end of the season, which I think are very cool, and as you can see, there's going to be a lot of different things that are going to be awarded as the Heisman race picks up. I'm curious to see if there's going to be a presentation in it. We obviously saw in this simulation, Dylan Gabriel wins the Heisman with 39 touchdowns and almost 4,000 passing yards. I thought that was kind of cool. There's going to be a head coach of the year award. There's going to be, coordinator of the year award, and there's going to be a lot of individual awards like the Johnny United's Golden Arm, the Lombardi, the Lou Gaza. There's going to be all kinds of awards that they're naming after certain players. They're also going to do All-American teams, so that's going to be, something that you can look forward to and try to get guys to be All-Americans, freshman team All-American, second team All-American, first team All-American, things like that. All these postseason awards are very cool to add just more, feel to the game and see how players stacked up. Even if you maybe didn't have such a great season, maybe you had a really good season with a specific player, that can always be some sort of comfort at the end of a season. And finally, guys, but certainly not least, the last feature that was detailed, guys, was the pride stickers on helmets. I know this is something people were wondering, like it would be really cool if, you know, start off with a couple stickers at Ohio State, but by the end of the season, if you're a stud, you're making plays all season, you have a full helmet. They literally showed it, guys. They used DJU from Florida State, and then they used Will Howard from Ohio State, and they did the whole helmet with all kinds of stickers. I thought that was very cool. I thought it was a very unique piece that they added to the game. I cannot wait to jump in and see how that's going to happen firsthand. I'm going to make videos on the road diving into each specific section of this deep dive. Especially, it's going to be much easier once we actually have the game, so I can walk you through a couple of things. So make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. And remember that giveaway I talked about earlier? One lucky person that likes this video and comments regularly on my videos is going to be winning a copy of EA College Football 25 once we reach 5,000 subs. So all you have to do is like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what's your first dynasty going to be. And if you want information on all the new teams that are coming to EA College Football 25 that were not there in NCAA 14, check out this video right here to learn more. And remember, boys, nice guys finish first, and God bless. Peace.